game environment. So things to consider. So every piece of armor you have will have some base stats. I tend to keep anything that is kind of 64 or above. Those stats will go up on those pieces of armor, depending what you do with it once you've got your piece of armor. So you'll see, if I use this piece of armor as the particular example, if I take off what's currently attached to it, you'll then see I've got a helmet as a base power of 66, which is particularly good. I've had some stuff drop recently, quite high, 67. Again, pretty good. Anything over 64 I would keep and do something with, because it's going to give you the best benefit armor-wise. So, once I've got all my particular bits of armor, I tend to masterwork those ones that are going to be most useful. So by masterworking it, you're adding 2 to every stat. So 2 to mobility, 2 to resilience, 2 to recovery, 2 to discipline, 2 to intellect, 2 to strength. And as you can see on my particular hood here, we're showing a stat of 105, which seems highly improbable. But there's a reason why that particular piece of armor has got such a high stat roll. And that reason being our lovely friend, Powerful Friends. So Powerful Friends has 2 unique factors. So one about becoming charged with light. Nearby enemies become charged with light when you've got it on. But the additional bonus you get with it is 20 to mobility when you've got a secondary socket of this armor with arc infused into it. So you'll see I've gone for hands-on arc to gain super damage when I'm doing melee kills, which is quite useful if you're using ranged melee. I know stasis on a warlock is a bit of an issue at the moment, but things like Top Tree Dawnblade, ranged melee, I could change that to give me some bonus on super by the fact that I'm killing things. So good for PvP in the main. But mobility is particularly useful in the game in general, especially in PvP. The more mobile you are, the more chance you've got to escape enemies. Certainly see a bonus for it when you're fighting people like ogres in the PvE. So that's a gaze they give you, which sometimes is difficult to get away from. The more mobile you are, the more opportunity you've got to escape that, because they can't move as fast as you can. So, well, with having the high mobility. And I've obviously got a secondary mod of mobility on this armor piece. So most of my mobility comes from this one piece of armor. So that's a helmet. Gloves. This is where we start to get into builds in the main. So currently we've got Global Reach added to it. So this is all about Warmind cells and builds for Warmind cells. So any Warmind cell I create damages targets over a greater distance. Currently we've got socketed the anti-barrier and the overload rounds in place, because I was particularly using them for the dungeon lost sector I was doing yesterday while I was grinding the Hawkmoon business. But you can see you can add other bits to that particular armor depending what I'm doing. So when we were in the raid the other day, I was using a grenade launcher, so I had grenade launcher in place just to give me a boost to dexterity, so easier to get that reloaded and fired out quickly. Again, here I've added a recovery mod. So recovery is quite an interesting stat, particularly on a warlock. So every character has its own stat that gives it a boost. Recovery is the boost for the warlock. So on a warlock class, by having a higher stat, it reduces my class ability cooldown. And also, obviously, the higher it is, the quicker I'm regenerating my health in this case. So I try and keep things around about 80 or higher. Now mobility is 77 at the moment, but there's a hidden perk from the legs I'm using, which means actually my mobility is higher than that. But we'll come to that in a minute. So we've got Moonfang, my lovely bit of chest armor, and in here I've got a really interesting mod. A couple of interesting mods in here. So Striking Light is the first thing I always socket into my pieces of armor. Now Striking Light only works with arc. It's probably worth noting. So if you've got arc bit of armor, you can use this particular mod. So it's got two unique perks. One of them, when charged with light, defeating combatants with melee damage and swords, spawns one power of orb. So great if you want to build up your super quickly. You can drop loads of orbs by using this particular perk. But there's a bonus to this. By having a secondary mod socket of arc, I can gain a damage resistance to combatants while sprinting. So this is the first of things about resilience that I'm going to talk about, and one of the reasons why I use it. So in lots of PvE activity, resilience is really needed, because for a long time you're going to be taking sustained damage from ads around you, especially in raids and some of the end game bits like the master lost sectors or the bits and bobs like that that are particularly challenging. So that particular mod gives us a improved resilience, which when sprinting gives me 25% reduction in damage. So that is quite a bit of reduction. When you think that you're trying to escape something, got lots of fire coming in, if I'm taking 25% less damage, then that's a bonus. So it's worth having just to escape. So I know the hunter has I mask. If I knew my hunter armor set to be brilliant, but it has the perk that as you dodge, gives you a health boost. Not that I remember what it's called now, but it'll come back to me in a minute. Also socketed, you'll see I've got arc resistant mods, two of them at the moment. So a lot of stuff we're doing at the moment has got the Fallen in mind. Fallen use arc as its damage type. So there are a number of mods that can benefit us with that in mind. So the raid, for example, is full of arc. A couple of lost sectors are full of arc as well. So one arc resistant mod gives me a 25% reduction in damage. So if you think about what we've got there at the moment, we've got 25% reduction in damage when I'm sprinting, plus I'm taking a 25% reduction in damage from my arc mod. Now you would think that having two socketed I get 50% reduction, but actually get 40% reduction in damage from arc mods, those arc mods socketed. So again, in a raid situation that we've currently been in, where you're sprinting to get balls and put them in the nice little holes. Notice my use of balls and holes. It's really useful. So it keeps me alive. So if you're lower light and you think to yourself, I'm not going to survive that particular encounter, then well, we're using those mods that could help you. And they definitely will help you. There is other mods I could have used as well in that particular environment. So there's a sniper mod, which is quite useful. So I could go arc and sniper, and that will give me a reduction in damage. Again, 25% for each mod. Get two socketed, then it comes out at 40%. Although if you've got a sniper and arc mod, and it's a sniper with arc that's firing at you, you actually get 52% reduction in damage because there's a bonus for having the two sets together. Don't ask me why, I did not invent it, just how Bungie works. You can have the same sets on each type of armor, so you could have a solar piece of armor and get solar resistance with arc, with sniper, or void with sniper. So there are those bonuses to having a specific class damage type. You'll also see we've got melee resistance. So again, with that you're getting a reduction from melee, so 25% reduction. Again, two of them 40% reduction. So if you're in a particular environment when you know you've got lots of thrall, for example, then you could use those and give yourself a bit of a bump. You've also got concussive dampener, particularly useful for bosses that stomp a lot. So I can think of a couple of them. We've just got the prophecy back, and that boss loves to stomp. So again, same as before, it's going to give you that boost in damage reduction. So that is again 25%, two of them 40%, but useful depending on the activity. And I know you don't want to change everything for each activity, so I have a couple of things I go to depending what I'm doing. So I've kind of kept Arc on because Arc's the majority of what we're doing in Europa at the moment. So it makes sense to keep those sort of things socketed. Right, so coming out of here a second. So resilience, seeing as we're talking about those additional socketed bits. So I've got 79% on resilience at the moment, which is shield capacity increase of 8% to a total of 10% if you go for 100. But resilience in general, it's giving you a damage subtraction. So if you think I've talked about the 25% less damage when I'm running, 25% or 50% nearly in resistance from those other mods I've got socketed. Plus then I'm getting 8% reduction from the fact that my resilience high. Plus there's a hidden bonus on resilience for this season of the stasis damage. So being frozen, the higher your resilience, the quicker you can, or the less damage you take from being frozen. So whereas it was a throwaway stat before, I think now it's come into its own because there's a lot of frozen encounters, a lot of encounters you get frozen in. So worth bumping that up slightly. So to come back to something that perhaps people don't know on the arms. So barrier rounds, especially like Overload, for example, we tend to only use them for the Overload champions. But they're strong against Overload champions, but they do disruption to other enemies. So I do keep them on quite often, because you will get a disruption to them. So it delays their ability to do stuff to you. So it's worth having them on, even if you haven't got a particular Overload champ around. You will get a bonus to your damage and disrupt the combatants you're against. So, well, with noting just what I was thinking about as we were talking then. So the only exotic you ever use on a Warlock would be Transversive Steps. So this gives you a hidden perk to speed. Hence why I've not got my my mobility at 90 odd, because it would destroy what this particular exotic does. So the bonus to this as well is it's reloading my weapons as I'm sprinting, so win-win all round. In this particular piece of armour, I've got Warmind's Protection in place. Again, this is Warmind Cell build, and the Warmind Protection is going to give me a 49%, well, practically 50% reduction in damage when enemies are near a Warmind Cell that I've made. So you'll hear me say, "Don't shoot my balls." So there is a time and a place to shoot the balls, and there's a time and place not to shoot my balls. There's a joke there somewhere. But having a nearly 50% reduction in damage from enemies that are near it, so particularly if you've got loads of ads and a powerful enemy, having one drop and then staying around that area, you'll see they all glow sort of an orangey colour. It means they're doing less damage to you. So well worth having that in place if you're running a Warmind Cell build. And you will find that those things have a real ability to keep you alive longer. If you think of everything I've added into this particular character, there's lots of sustainability in heavy fighting. So you'll see me running around a lot because I'm getting a 25% reduction in damage. But then if I've got a ball on the floor, then try and keep it alive unless I'm shooting it. Although interestingly, if you've got the same build as me, you will get the same benefits from my balls. This sounds really dodgy, but you'll understand. So that's lovely legs. And then on my Warlock Bond, I'm running the benefit of having the Wrath of Rasputin. So this is a really interesting mod. So any solar splash damage is going to give me a Warmind Cell. And I find this the quickest way of building or getting Warmind cells. So interestingly, things like using I wonder if I've got them attached. I have. Xenophage, for example, gives you a solar explosion. So I find that particularly good for boosting up that solar Warmind cells. Even something like Jotun will do the same thing. I've seen that quite often. And then if you've got anything like a grenade launcher, like Martyr's Retribution, that gives you a lovely piece of fire on the floor, that will produce loads of them as well. I've even seen some being produced by Trustee. I had a particular one that was giving Dragonfly with the solar explosion, was then giving me Warmind cells, which is quite useful, as you can probably tell. Warmind cells in general, produced by the weapons from Seven Seraph. They're kind of the ones that produce them in the main, so the revolver and the auto rifle. Just picked that one up, slide shot weapon. Sounds pretty good to me, quite like that. You can also use the SMG, which I haven't got attached to this character, and there's also the machine gun. The thing that does produce them, which not a lot of people know, is the Ikelos stuff. So the SMG, the sniper rifle, and the shotgun do create Warmind cells. So a really useful weapon to have is this machine gun. It's one of my favourite weapons at the moment. This one with dynamic sway and Vorpal weapon is very good. Certainly gets me out of trouble. I've only used it for the past couple of weeks. It's already got 1,000 kills, so it's something that stays on the character quite often. So that's that. I'm currently using the two seasonal mods. The one for overload grenades is particularly useful for the amount of overload champs we've got across the board at the moment. And I'm also using Berserker. So when my super ends, you gain a temporary bonus to weapon damage, which has been particularly useful in most of the endgame activity we've been doing. So you will see me now and again before I go into an encounter with lots of time to pop my super, kill a few enemies, and then use my heavy weapon, because actually I'm going to get bonus in damage. And this particular bond's got some resilience on as well, just to help out. Something that not a lot of people know is there's resilience built into each of the subclasses. It's a hidden resilience, so I've got Shea Bender, Binder even, socketed at the moment, but obviously we've got Void and we've got Solar and Arc. Each gives us a different benefit. So when we're talking about just Warlocks, I will cover some Titan stats and some Warlock stats in a moment, but just thinking of Warlock, so if I was in Dawnblade, which is a roaming super, then I'm gaining an 80% reduction in damage in that particular super. I don't tend to feel it in PvP, but I do tend to feel it in PvE, and I think that's more to do with some of the other things that are going on in PvP, but we'll come back to that in a second. If I'm using Stormcaller, I've got an 81% resilience buff. If I'm in Nova Warp, I've got an 80% resilience buff, and if I'm in Shadebinder, I've got an 80% resilience buff. So useful to know, because in a scary situation, you could just pop your super to get a bit of resilience and get your health back. Stuff that is interesting to hunters and titans is hunters and your roaming supers. The Spectral Blades gives you an 80% buff in resilience. Arc Strider, which you'll see used quite a bit in PvP, gives you an 81% boost to resilience, and Golden Gun gives you a lovely 60%. So Golden Gun's going to get you killed quickly. Titans of this world, they seem to have the best resilience when it comes to this type of thing. It might be only 1% or 2%, but they do. Burning Maul, 82% resistance. Sentinel is 81. Behemoth is 83. Sunbreaker is 80. And Fists of Havoc is 81. So you can see they're a little bit more percent here and there. But that's probably why Titans run around in their super all the time. Because they're resistant to everything. If you try to kill a Titan in a super, you'll know what I mean. It is a benefit that, again, is something that's hidden, I suppose, is Wrist Runner is one of those weapons that gives you a boost in resilience too. So you'll know by using Wrist Runner you get an arc shield over the top of you. Well, that arc protection is giving you a 49% resilience buff. So if you pair it with everything else that we've got going on, you can get quite resilient quite quickly, especially in that sort of fray of lots of enemies around you. Those sort of nightfall situations where you want to kind of keep away, but you need to finish the champion off, then they're all going to give you a bit of a buff and a bonus. So that's kind of the armor bits I'm using at the moment. There are different builds on from Warlocks to Hunters to Titans, but a lot of them stay the same in the main. So I did talk about the fact that Warlocks have this hidden buff in recovery. Titans have it in resilience. So the higher their resilience, the better for them, because it gives them a buff in the recuperation of the abilities. And Hunters have it in mobility. So the higher their mobility, the quicker their cooldown and stuff is. So useful things to note. Hopefully that's been of some help to people. If anyone's got any questions on armour or numbers, then Woogle Snoogle is the place to come. I have the percentages and the reason why I use them. So I think Rob did ask me the other day why I use Striking Light. And when you then look at it and you go, actually, if I'm running, I'm getting a resistance in damage, I can run to cover, which is why I'm using it. It just helps keeping one of the team members alive, I guess, especially in raid situations.